Good morning. I'm very happy to welcome you here to the Distinguished Poet Series at Passaic County Community College. My name is Maria Gillen, and we're very pleased to have William Stafford here as our guest today. There are so many things that could be said about William Stafford, awards he's won, books he's written. We have several of his books outside, an Oregon Message and Wyoming are available outside for sale, and probably what will happen, this book, Stories That Could Be True, did not arrive, so probably on Monday what will happen is a whole box of these will arrive. But what I would like you to do, I just lost my place, what I'd like you to do is, if you're interested in this book, you can always call me and send a check and we'll send you the book. At any rate, it seems to me that William Stafford's poetry has been a classic of American literature for at least 20 or 25 years. For me, even after studying literature, I think that in the last few years, his poems seem to speak more and more to me. And I think if I were to summarize the effect of his poetry, I read a poem this morning of his called Listening, and I just want to read a few lines of it because it's this sense of his poetry. I think in a way these 4 lines talk about what is so moving in his poetry and what has such resonance in his poetry. My father could hear a little animal's step or a moth in the dark against the screen, and every far sound called the listening out into places where the rest of us had never been. It seems to me that that's really what William Stafford does, calls us out to places we have never been. Let's welcome William Stafford.
Thank you, Maria, and everyone. This program wants to show you a different country. It's the one that your life conceals, the one waiting outside when curtains are drawn, the one grandmother hinted at in her crochet design, the one almost found over at the edge of music after the sermon. It's the way life is, and you have it. A few years given. You get hurt now and then, violated in various ways. Sometimes it's turnabout. You get tired of that. Long suffering, you wait and pray, and maybe good things come. Maybe the hurt slackens and you hardly feel it anymore. You have a breath without pain. That is called happiness. It's a balance, the taking, passing along, the composting of where you've been and how people and weather treated you. It's a country where you already are, bringing where you have been. Time offers this gift in its millions of ways, turning the world, moving the air, calling every morning. Here, take it. It's yours. Well, I wanted to start, this is called The Gift. I just wanted to start by talking a poem. And I've thought about this morning, and I'm going to presume on a lot of unifying feeling here because of the kind of people who come to a poetry reading. And I know a lot of us have an interest in writing, and we're meeting in a college, so I'd insulate the poems from each other with a little bit of talk now and then about the process. So I want to start with the really minimum kind of thing. And I deliberately said kind of thing, but because I just want to think of these as pieces of language. I sometimes think of poems as talk with a little luck in it. This is called First Grade. In the play, Amy didn't want to be anybody, so she managed the curtain. Sharon wanted to be Amy, but Sam wouldn't let anybody be anybody else. He said it was wrong. All right, Steve said, I'll be me, but I don't like it. So Amy was Amy, and we didn't have the play, and Sharon cried. Now, I sent off little pieces of language, submitted poems is the way you usually say it. I sent off some little pieces of language, including this. And I like to put in enough in the envelope so that I get my full mileage out of whatever number of stamps I put on the envelope. So I put in this. It was taken, published in Ontario Review. What is it? Well, in the play, and so on. I want to do another little thing like this. This is called The Little Girl by the Fence at School. Grass that was moving found all shades of brown, moved them along, flowed autumn away galloping southward where summer had gone. And that was the morning someone's heart stopped and all became still. A girl said, forever? And the grass, yes, forever. While the sky, well, now I'm, not even finishing it in a way, but still in a way finishing it. I want to stop for a minute and try to make a claim for what we do, all of us. We flourish in the language. Before kids go to school, they have accomplished a lot. I kept track of the kids, we have 4 children, of their sayings when they were learning the language from about 2 to 5. Wonderfully inventive. What happens to us later? Well, I want to get back to that, or I want to maintain that readiness in language as a writer, as a reader, as a talker, as a listener. So I want to read this isn't something I wrote, it's something I wrote down that our daughter said when she was 6 years old. We'd been down at the Oregon coast all day hiking around and everybody's tired, so I had to drive back over the coast range. And Kit, 6 years old, stood by the dashboard to help Daddy drive. That is, she'd talk and keep me awake. And she began to imagine a way of life for the 2 of us, and this is what she said. We'd have an old car, the kind that gets flat tires, but inside would be wolf skin on the seats, and warm fur on the steering wheel, and wolf fur on all the buttons. And we live in a ranch house made out of logs with a loft where you sleep. And you'd walk a little ways and there'd be the barn with the horses. We'd drive to town and we'd have flat tires and be sort of old. Well, I was charmed by this. And I want to stop on it long enough to try to find together here what's going on. For one thing, Kit is talking in circumstances where she feels she has a sympathetic audience. She's not trying to be somebody else. She knows her way like a guided missile because it's her own feelings that she's talking about. She can't get lost. I realize she can be psychoanalyzed for all that wolf fur inside the car. That's okay. And it's almost like tricks in language, except it's not tricks, it's just following the contour you're feeling, where she says things like, and you'd walk a little ways and there'd be the farm. The farm. It sort of takes you in. It says we already understand this. Now, authors learn how to do this later. Kids don't have to learn. Well, Wittgenstein said to do philosophy, and I'd say to do creative writing, He said to do philosophy, one doesn't learn how to do philosophy, one learns that one can do philosophy. And I think that's what we have to get, realization. He says, to do philosophy, you have to unlearn many things educated people know. Now, I want to read something that might sound as if it's it's more closely connected with the preceding than it really is. I wrote this sometime later, but it's called With Kit, age 7, at the beach. And I want to read it deliberately, an increment at a time, as if, and in fact, I think this is the way it happened. The first thing suggests the second thing, the first two suggest the third thing, the first three. In other words, it's sort of cumulative. With Kit, age 7, at the beach. We were going to the highest dune. From there to gaze and come down. The ocean was performing. We contributed our climb. Out of the storm, those waves leapfrogged forward and came. What should our trip mean? Kit waited for me to decide. Faced with that kind of world, what would you tell your child? That was an absolute vista. The froth blew far and cold. I knew Kit was afraid, the way she held on to my hand. How far could you swim, Daddy, in such a storm? As far as was needed, I said. And as I talked, I swam. Now, I didn't know if I'd have the nerve to read this as slowly as I wanted to read it. It's just as if everything comes out of the thing before. And I want to go on from that. I want to leave Kit and 2 to 5 and try for a little altitude here and read something very recent. But it's all, for me, based on that confirming realization that you have found your way by means of little signals in the language and in your life to the next thing, to the next. Well, I was up at Morehead State in Minnesota looking at the school paper before I did a reading that night. And in the school paper there was a little thing on the editorial page. It said that Moses, the biology department's iguana, had died. And it said, it had a little article. It said the students had learned to like Moses, and they looked in a little box every time they went in the biology department to say hello to Moses. Now, Moses was gone. So they were going to give a prize for the best poem about Moses. They were going to pay $15. I suddenly got ambitious. It said, to win the prize, you must be employed or attending Morehead State. And I suddenly thought, hey, I'm employed here today. I better write it right away. So I wrote this, a lesson in biology for Moses, the biology department's iguana at Morehead State University. Moses, my name, a box, my home. I lived and measured earth with my length, so close, so dear to my belly, my hands. And students I studied, each in a box invisible but exactly there, and firm around them, clear as the air. At night no one heard my lonely cries, exiled here in a world strange as a dream that no one understands. Long earth, farewell, and students who stared, goodbye. Moses has gone away, who lived so lonely among you, so quiet and kind. Well, I'd like to say I won $15 for this. It's not true, however. But I did read it in my reading that night, and a few days after I got home, I got a call from someone in the history department saying, I am in charge of the contest for the poem about Moses. And someone tells me that you read your poem that night. I wasn't there, but I heard about it. I thought, oh, good, now I'm going to win the prize. But no, she said, if you'll send me a copy of it, I'll put it in the school paper. So I got published anyway. And among us, I confess, I didn't get the $15. But I want to go back for a minute. What Kit had when she said, there'd be the barn with the horses, just little things. I felt I had some of those little things in here. I have Moses measuring earth with its length, so close, so dear to my belly, my hands. And then at the end saying, long earth, farewell. I just like to have an iguana say, long earth. Little thing, but maybe we live by these little things. So I want to start with the way kids do it, and I want to get really ambitious to have it be just right. I just realized from what it looks at me here, though, I want to say one other thing about writing, the occasional thing. A person called me up from a restaurant in Portland, Oregon, and said, are you Stafford? Yeah. You write, don't you? Yeah. Well, I'm going to have a banquet in my restaurant, 7 courses, all based on garlic, including the dessert. And if you'll write a poem about garlic, you and your wife can have free tickets, and I'll print what you write on the menu. So I said to my wife, you want to go to a 7-course banquet? I didn't tell her based on garlic. She said, yeah. So I said, all right, fine. And this was printed on the menu. Ode to Garlic. Sudden it comes for you in the cave of yourself where you know and are lifted by important events. Say you are dining and it happens. Soaring like an eagle, you are pierced by a message from the midst of life. Memory, what holds the days together, touches your tongue. It is from deep in the earth, and it reaches out kindly, saying, hello, old friend. It makes us alike, all offspring of powerful forces, one great embrace of democracy united across every boundary. You walk out generously, giving it back in a graceful wave, what you've been given. Like a child again, you breathe on the world, and it shines. Well, my poem was pirated by the Garlic Times of Gilroy, California. And that's the garlic capital of the world, and that's called success. Now I want to try to make a little turn. For some of these, the title isn't very important, but I think it is here. It's called Serving with Gideon. Now I remember, in our town, the druggist prescribed Coca-Cola mostly in tapered glasses to us, and to the elevator man in a paper cup so he could drink it elsewhere because he was black. And now I remember the Legion, gambling in the back room, no women but girls, old boys who ran the town. They were generous to their sons or the sons of friends, and of course I was almost one. I remember winter light closing its great blue fist slowly eastward along the street, and the dark then deep as war arched over a radio show called The 30s in the great old USA. Look down, stars. I was almost one of the boys. My mother was folding her handkerchief. The library seethed and sparked, right and wrong arced, and carefully I walked with my cup toward the elevator man. we start out learning a little bit from people near us about communication. That is nurtured by readiness and receptivity and response from others. We begin to accomplish a lot with language. We talk the great novel of our lives. When we go to school, at some stage, we meet people who begin to impose standards and correct us. I know I'm a teacher, have been a teacher for a long time, met classes from beginning to graduate school, and I'm in this, but I began to realize that what we need is that continuing recognition and confirmation in the first place. I read once, someone said, some linguistics person said, you can't make a mistake in your native language. I felt liberated by this. And I began to realize dictionary makers, I used to think they decided what a word should mean. We know better than that. Now we know they find out how we use it and then they say that's how it is. And so we're right in the middle of our language, making it all the time. It keeps getting modified a little bit, a little bit. We're inventive. Well, several of these things sort of touch on school. So I want to read an epiphany. That time you glanced away when your eyelash rested above your cheek and the sunlight along your hair bent. That time the clock went still, stopped by how steep the world felt when it yawed in its great quiet spin. That heavy hour in the golden classroom with everyone gone and you crying for joy while the janitor's broom swished near in the hall. That star then born somewhere in the sky, never to go out even if all the bells in the school clanged open at once and ricocheted over our town. That stumbling treasure suddenly my own by how I embraced it. Not the world, not the sky, but a way of leaning to accept whatever would come. I guess, this is very recent, I guess I was again groping my way in words toward trying for that realization that whatever we are is where we start from when we do whatever we do. And it's not a leaving behind and a taking up of a new self. It's an accepting of self. And you can't get lost. When you write certain kinds of things, it's different from the research paper that you research for a week, 2 weeks, a year. You are writing the research paper of your whole life. And in the world, there is one supremely qualified expert, yourself. And there's that feeling that you just can't get lost. You don't have to try to be original. You can't help it. It's not an achievement, it's a plight. Well, and now I want to go back and try again for the sort of childish things. At the playground, away down deep and away up high, a swing drops you into the sky. Back, it draws you away down deep. Forth, it flings you in a sweep all the way to the stars and back. Goodbye, Jill, goodbye, Jack, shuddering climb wild and steep, away up high, way down deep. We probably all remember this from school ground. I have grandchildren now. I could hardly wait till they were strong enough to hold on enough to, go up and lean back and fall into the sky. That we had a wonderful feeling. Well, I'll hurry on from that. I put a lot of things here before me as I started. I had a sequence in mind. I lose faith in some as I look at them. So I put them over here in case I get faith in them again. This is a story that could be true. The title is really important on this one. I want it to be a story that could be true. If you were exchanged in the cradle and your real mother died without ever telling the story, then no one knows your name. And somewhere in the world, your father is lost and needs you, but you are far away. He can never find how true you are, how ready. When the great wind comes and the robberies of the rain, you stand on the corner shivering. The people who go by, you wonder at their calm. They miss that whisper that runs any day in your mind. Who are you really, wanderer? And the answer you have to give, no matter how dark and cold the world around you is. Maybe I'm a king. Well, confession. I wanted it to be a story that could be true. And then a friend of ours who was teaching 3rd grade took my poem to her class and read it to the students. She came back and she said, Bill, you wouldn't believe the effect this has on kids that age, because maybe you've forgotten, but everyone has a time in life when they suddenly think, maybe my parents aren't my real parents. So this had everyone. Except I realized at the last, and I feel a victim of our language here, I had to say, I wanted to say something that was quick, not over elaborate, and definitive at the end. Maybe I'm a king. But I leave out half the people when I say that. Maybe I'm a queen or a king. Well, you can't say that. So how am I going to exit my poem and still have it? I couldn't. So I was trapped by the language. I think we're trapped often without knowing it. This time I was trapped and I knew it. Well, this is Pilgrims. They come to the door, usually carrying or leading a child, always with the book held between them and the world. They quote Ezekiel, Daniel, Kings. They look at us and think of Nebuchadnezzar eating the grass. It is good to listen, because maybe there are angels, and behind them the sky arches, the trees glisten in worship of the sun. These travelers in the Word and their offspring have their commission from somewhere, filtered down through mistakes, pride, greed, and the plans committees make, the way pilgrims have always come. Over their shoulders, day extends his hand. Beside them a child whimpers. It bows its head as we bow. It hungers. It cries. It will be fed. I just want to stop for a minute about derivations. My wife and I are raking leaves in the front yard. She's working hard, and I'm working pretty hard. Here comes someone carrying the Bible, leading a child. They want to talk to me for a few minutes. I'm delighted. I lean on my rake. I listen. Meanwhile, my wife is off there. Rake. So I'm listening with great patience. And I can tell my wife is getting impatient because she's doing the raking. I'm doing the listening. So she's a little bit mad at me for spending so much time getting the word that day. So I went in after I finished the baking, and I wrote Pilgrims, because I wanted to have a message for her. Maybe they're angels, so on. It was just fun to do. And for fun, the big house. She was a modern, He, dealt in land. They maintained, several gardens. When the wind blows, their flowers are famous. Their house was well built, they say. And they say the foundation had rock under it. Some of the walls, they say, were 2 feet thick. An artist, they say, designed the door handles. Construction took, I don't know how long. And I don't know how many bedrooms. They needed, I don't know how big a plan. But the whole thing, I don't know how, fell down. They're gone, they say, I don't know where. Well, I just thought it would be fun to start doing something so persistent that people would think, surely not again. Not again, not that dumb. Yeah. Sometimes when writing, it seems, well, come to think of it, I don't have to assert this. I'll quote William Blake. If the fool would persist in his folly, he would become wise. Kind of a feeling, just, okay, you're on to something, don't give it up, keep trying. The reason I'm stopping is there's something about syllables for us writers. I want to read The Farm on the Great Plain and revert to this topic. A telephone line goes cold, birds tread it wherever it goes. A farm back of a great plain tugs an end of the line. I call that farm every year, ringing it, listening, still. No one is home at the farm. The line gives only a hum. Some year I will ring the line on a night at last, the right one, and with an eye tapered for braille, from the phone on the wall I will see the tenant who waits, the last one left at the place. Through the dark, my braille eye will lovingly touch his face. Hello, is Mother at home? No one's home today. But Father, he should be there. No one is here. But you? Are you the one? Then the line will be gone because both ends will be home. No space, no birds, no farm. Myself will be the plain, wise as winter is gray, pure as cold posts go, pacing toward what I know. Now I want to go back. I had this one just persisting in my folly. You know. They say. I don't know. They're gone, they say, Well, in this one, it's just as full of folly. It's just as full of persistence. But maybe it's not so evident. And I think the persistence, I'll sprawl all over myself for this. I'll sacrifice my poem. The persistence is in certain syllables. The farm gives only a hum, home. There is a world champion syllable around here somewhere. There are millions of people who meditate. Om, om, om. Comes from right in the middle of us. A little superstition. what if the syllables themselves have a meaning? And we go hop-skipping along through the language, carelessly, happily, or dismally. And we are haunted by the ghosts of other words that are related to these words that we're saying by the fact of their resonance and sound. It's not in a dictionary. I'll quote someone who let the language be haunted, John Milton. Avenge, O Lord, thy slaughtered saints, whose bones lie scattered in the Alpine mountains, cold, even them who kept thy truth so pure of old, forget not. Well, we go tripping around, and Milton's not for everybody, but I can't read that sort of thing, especially say it aloud, without feeling that the language is a mighty instrument some people can really play. So I want to be, I have to be a writer, I have to be myself, but I will realize as much as I can from other people and from literature the possibilities. Hence, I think I come around to a kind of a justification for college, for teaching, so on, in some ways. Now, I know that we're going to have an open reading in a few minutes, but I want to try to make 2 or 3 other points here, and there are some things I just have to read, but I'm wound up to about close to 12. One way is to take a form and put something else in it. Strange things happen. This is called a catechism. Who challenged my soldier mother? Nobody. Who kept house for her and fended off the world? My father. Who suffered most from her oppressions? My sister. Who went out into the world to right its wrongs? My sister. Who became bitter when the world didn't listen? My sister. Who challenged my soldier sister? Nobody. Who grew up and saw all this and recorded it and kept wondering how to solve it but couldn't? Guess who? Well, I remember seeing a newspaper picture of an Israeli soldier, a woman. She looked sort of like my mother. I mean, here was this woman with a rifle over her shoulder. And that's how it all started. I thought, who challenged my soldier mother? Everyone who's been little, this means everybody, knows how awesome big people are. Oppressive. Fathers, mothers, they're big, they can't help it, but they're awful big. My mother has suffered in many of my poems. She would forgive me, I'm sure. When you start to write, you are vectoring into experiences that sometimes require of you the embracing of opportunities that come along. So if I make my mother a soldier and then make her more awesome than she was, sacrifice for art, mother, forgive me. I had here something I don't want to put in here, so she will forgive me, I hope. Well, I thought I had. Guess I don't have. Something from my mother. It's gone. One time, when evening had flowed between houses and paused on the school ground, I met Hilary's blind little sister, following the gray, smooth railing still warm from the sun with her hand. And she stood by the edge, holding her face upward, waiting while the last light found her cheek and her hair, and then on over the trees. You could hear the great sprinkler arm of water find and then leave the pavement, and pigeons telling each other their dreams, or the dreams they would have. We were deep in the well of shadow by then, and I held out my hand, saying, "Tina, it's me. Hillary says I should tell you it's dark." And oh, Tina, it is. Together now. And I reached, our hands touched, and we found our way home. I wanted to put this toward the end because it came from an assignment in a college when a poet with a wonderful name for a poet, Grace Butcher, was giving us an assignment. She said, think of something that happened, but don't tell what happened. Tell what you wish had happened. Or think of something you said, but don't tell what you said. Tell what you wish you'd said. And then she added a crucial thing. She said, try to use more of the senses than you ordinarily would. Because of that thing Grace Butcher said, I made Hillary's sister blind so that she could feel that warm railing, so that the sprinkler arm of water could find and then leave the pavement. And I'm expanding on this, not because of this one little poem, but maybe for all of us, as we enter the world with these selves that are our own, that we be available to what experience there is. And for each of us, the possibility of this interpenetration of life comes sometimes by chance. But when we begin to write, those chance things are still with us. So when Grace Butcher gave us this assignment, one thing that came back to me was the blind girl on our campus who, when finding her way, when she recognized a friend, would sometimes take your arm to go faster across campus. And she took my arm one day, and we had a class, first period, in the music building. And not until the blind girl was holding my arm and we went into the music building did I realize how rich the music building was. Far off, someone singing, piano practice here, echoing of the hall, how she knew where the open part was in the hall. All of these things were made available to me by that experience. Maybe as we write, we help each other, we help ourselves and each other into that bigger room, that what I started with when I said, this program wants to show you a different country. Maybe that's what keeps us, sustains us with little bonuses as we write. I want to read at least just, well, two more things. One is, I want to read this slowly and let it, like that other one I read slowly, just come out of what's happening. It's called Ask Me. Sometime when the river is ice, ask me mistakes I have made. Ask me whether what I've done is my life. Others have come their slow way into my thought, and some have tried to help or to hurt. Ask me what difference their strongest love or hate has made. I will listen to what you say. You and I can turn and look at the silent river and wait. We know the current is there, hidden And there are comings and goings from miles away that hold the stillness exactly before us. What the river says, that is what I say. I want to end with one. Let's see if I have it here. It's a short one. And I want to let this stand for that kind of economy that I tried to start with. Economics, that is making the most of the resources that are ours. Let this stand for it, but I won't belabor it. I'll just read it and get out of the way so that Maria can start the open reading. Say, before I read this, thanks for the invitation. Grateful for the hospitality. Once in the 40s, we were alone one night on a long road in Montana. This was in winter, a big night, far to the stars. We had hitched, my wife and I, and left our ride at a crossing to go on. Tired and cold, but brave, we trudged along. This, we said, was our life, watched over, allowed to go where we wanted. We said we'd come back sometime when we got rich. We'd leave the others and find a night like this, whatever we had to give, and no matter how far, to be so happy again.